The Bellevue Hills estate was tomb silent that afternoon, the kind of silence Isaac Brennan had grown accustomed to, sterile, expensive, and suffocating. He pushed open the nursery door, platinum cufflinks catching the light, and then time stopped. His body went rigid. The leather portfolio in his hand hit the marble floor with a dull thud. There, on the plush carpet, his 5-year-old twins sat in their adaptive chairs. Asher's head was turned, deliberately, impossibly, tracking Ruth as she moved a colorful scarf through the air. And Levi. God, Levi was smiling. Not a muscle spasm. Not a reflex. A real, genuine, responsive smile. Ruth, the new maid in her simple uniform, was singing softly, and Asher's hand, his paralyzed hand, was slowly, trembling, reaching toward her face. Isaac couldn't breathe. His chest constricted, his pulse hammered in his ears. For 5 years, specialists from Harvard and Johns Hopkins had been absolute, severe cerebral palsy, no cognitive response to external stimuli, no possibility of meaningful interaction. But his sons were responding. They were engaged. They were alive in a way he'd been told they never would be. And they were doing it for a minimum wage maid he'd hired 3 weeks ago. What impossible moment in your life changed everything? Share in the comments below. Isaac's study smelled of leather and power, mahogany shelves lined with first editions, a desk that cost more than most people's cars. He stood by the window overlooking the manicured gardens, hands clasped behind his back, every muscle in his body coiled tight. Ruth entered quietly, her worn shoes barely making a sound on the Persian rug. She didn't sit, didn't speak. Just waited. What did you do to them? Isaac's voice was sharp, controlled. He turned to face her, his jaw set. What methods are you using? Sir, I don't lie to me. He moved closer, his 6-foot frame towering over her. I've spent 5 years and $17 million on specialists. Neurologists from Harvard. Therapists from Johns Hopkins. Physical rehabilitation experts from Switzerland. His voice cracked slightly. Nothing worked. Nothing. And then you walk into my house 3 weeks ago and suddenly my sons are there. He couldn't finish the sentence. Ruth met his gaze steadily, her calloused hands folded in front of her uniform. I don't have methods, Mr. Brennan. I have no medical training. No degrees. No certifications. Then what? The word came out like a demand. I had a sister. Hannah. She has cerebral palsy. Ruth's voice was soft but firm. I took care of her from the time she was 11 and I was 16. Our parents died in a car accident. Social services wanted to separate us, put her in state care, but I fought to keep her. Isaac's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. I worked 3 jobs, learned everything I could about disability care, and I loved her. Ruth paused. That's all I do with Asher and Levi, sir. I just treat them like they understand. Like they're here. Because maybe they are. Isaac stared at her for a long moment, his carefully constructed world tilting on its axis. This woman with her simple answer and calloused hands had just challenged everything he thought he knew. That's it. His voice was quieter now, almost uncertain. You just talk to them? I see them, Mr. Brennan. Ruth's eyes held his. Maybe that's what they've been waiting for. Someone who sees them as boys, not as problems to solve. The words hit Isaac like a punch to the chest. He turned back to the window, his reflection staring back at him, a stranger in an expensive suit who'd forgotten how to simply be present. You're dismissed, he said, his voice hollow. But as Ruth reached the door, he added without turning around. Don't change anything you're doing with them. Have you ever been challenged by someone unexpected? Tell me in the comments. And if this story is touching your heart, hit that subscribe button, you won't want to miss what happens next. Nurse Patricia Hendricks had worked for the Brennan family for 3 years, and she'd never once deviated from procedure. So when she appeared at Isaac's office door unannounced, her clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield, he knew something was wrong. Mr. Brennan, I need to report a serious breach of protocol. Isaac looked up from his laptop, his jaw tightening. Go on. It's Ruth, sir. The new maid. Patricia's voice carried the clipped disapproval of someone whose authority had been undermined. She's been violating every standard of care we've established. Yesterday, I found her sitting on the floor with the boys. On the floor, Mr. Brennan. Not in the designated therapy positions. Isaac's fingers stilled on the keyboard. She sings to them. Unapproved songs, nursery rhymes, lullabies, folk songs that have no therapeutic value whatsoever. And she's spending excessive time on non-therapeutic activities. Reading picture books, making up stories, just talking to them about her day as if they can understand. Patricia stepped closer, her frustration evident. Sir, I've documented 18 separate violations in the past week alone. She's undermining the structured medical environment we've worked so hard to maintain. The physical therapist is concerned. The occupational therapist is concerned. Ruth has no business. Install cameras in the nursery. Isaac interrupted, his voice flat. Patricia blinked. Excuse me? Surveillance cameras. I want to see exactly what she's doing. Isaac leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. But you're not to interfere with her methods. Not yet. Mr. Brennan, with all due respect, she's a maid, not a medical professional. She could be doing harm. I said not yet, Patricia. His tone left no room for argument. Continue your regular duties. I'll handle Ruth. Patricia's lips pressed into a thin line, but she nodded curtly and left. Isaac sat alone in his office, staring at the closed door. 18 violations. Sitting on the floor. Singing songs with no therapeutic value. Just talking to his sons like they were normal children. Like they were there. He picked up his phone and dialed his head of security. I need cameras installed in the East Wing nursery. Today. And I want the feed sent directly to my personal device. Sometimes the rules we follow aren't the ones that heal us. What do you think? Should Isaac trust Ruth or listen to the medical professionals? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter. Isaac couldn't sleep. At 2:17 a.m., he sat in his darkened bedroom, the glow of his tablet illuminating his face as he pulled up the nursery camera feed. The night nurse sat in the corner chair, scrolling through her phone, following protocol. The boys were still in their beds, monitors beeping softly. Then the door opened. Ruth slipped inside, still in her uniform from the day's shift that had ended 6 hours ago. Isaac leaned forward, his pulse quickening. She wasn't supposed to be there. Her shift ended at 8. The night nurse looked up, startled. Ruth said something Isaac couldn't hear through the silent feed, and the nurse nodded, returning to her phone. Ruth moved to Asher's bed first. Her movements were careful, practiced. She adjusted his pillow, smoothed the blanket around his thin shoulders, then gently repositioned his arm that had twisted at an awkward angle. She stayed there for a moment, her hand resting lightly on his forehead. Then she crossed to Levi. Isaac watched, transfixed, as Ruth knelt beside the bed. Her lips moved, and though there was no audio, he could read the tenderness in every gesture. She brushed Levi's hair back from his face, tucked his favorite stuffed elephant closer to his chest, and leaned in to whisper something. Isaac grabbed his phone and called security. Turn on audio for nursery camera. Now. 30 seconds later, Ruth's voice filled his bedroom, soft and warm in the darkness. And tomorrow, sweet boy, we'll read about the dragon who was afraid of heights. I think you'll like him. He reminds me of you, braver than he knows. She paused, adjusting Levi's blanket. Sleep well, love. I'll see you in the morning. She kissed her fingertips and pressed them gently to Levi's forehead, then did the same for Asher before quietly leaving the room. Isaac sat frozen, the tablet trembling in his hands. Ruth hadn't known anyone was watching. There were no medical staff to impress, no supervisor to perform for. This wasn't duty. This was love. He replayed the footage 3 times before dawn broke, watching a minimum wage maid give his sons what his millions never could, someone who checked on them not because she had to, but because she couldn't sleep without knowing they were okay. Have you ever witnessed someone's true character when they thought no one was watching? Share your story below. And if this chapter touched you, subscribe, because what Isaac discovers next will change everything. The manila folder landed on Isaac's desk with a soft thud. Marcus Chin, his private investigator for the past decade, stood with his hands in his pockets, his expression unusually somber. "You're not going to like this," Marcus said. Isaac flipped open the folder. Ruth's employment application stared back at him, her neat handwriting filling out the education section: Bachelor of Science in Psychology, State University, 2018. She lied, Marcus continued. Ruth Castellano never graduated college. She dropped out in her freshman year. October 2016, to be exact. Isaac's jaw tightened. Why? Marcus pulled out another document, an obituary. Car accident. Daniel and Maria Castellano, killed instantly on Highway 101. They left behind 2 daughters, Ruth, 16, and Hannah, 11. He paused. Hannah has cerebral palsy. Isaac looked up sharply. Ruth fought the state for 6 months to become Hannah's legal guardian. She was a minor herself, but she hired a lawyer with money she'd saved from babysitting, presented a care plan, and convinced a judge she could do it. Marcus shook his head. She worked 3 jobs: morning shift at a diner, afternoon cleaning offices, overnight stocking shelves at a grocery store. Taught herself disability care through library books and YouTube videos. Where's Hannah now? Isaac's voice was quiet. Sunrise Valley Group Home. Top-rated facility. Costs about $4,000 a month. Marcus pulled out a payment history. Ruth's been paying every month for 3 years without missing once. Hannah's thriving there, participating in adaptive sports, has friends, gets professional care. Isaac stared at the documents spread across his desk. Ruth had sacrificed her education, her youth, her entire future to give her sister a life. And she'd lied on her application because she needed this job to keep paying for Hannah's care. There's more, Marcus said. Last month, Ruth visited Hannah on her day off. Spent 6 hours there. The staff said Hannah asked when Ruth would move closer. He met Isaac's eyes. Ruth told her sister, "When I save enough, baby. I promise." Isaac closed the folder slowly. Ruth wasn't just good at caring for his sons. She'd built her entire life around loving someone the world had written off. Sometimes the people with the least have given the most. What's your take on Ruth's decision? Comment below, and subscribe to see what Isaac does with this information. Ruth knew the moment she received the text. My study. Now. She'd been expecting it, really. Good things never lasted long in her life. She climbed the marble staircase with steady steps, her heart hammering beneath her uniform. When she entered, Isaac stood by the window again, the manila folder open on his desk. Her employment application sat on top, that careful lie about her degree circled in red ink. Sit, Isaac said without turning around. Ruth remained standing. I'd rather not, sir. I know why I'm here. He finally faced her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. Not anger. Something harder to read. Why did you lie on your application? Ruth's hands trembled slightly, but her voice stayed firm. Because I needed the job, Mr. Brennan. Hannah's care facility costs $4,000 a month. I've never missed a payment in 3 years, and I won't start now. I knew I was qualified to do this work, but I also knew no one would hire me without a degree. She lifted her chin. So I lied. And I'm not sorry for it. Isaac picked up the folder, flipping through pages. You were 16 when your parents died. You fought the state for custody of your disabled sister. Worked 3 jobs. Taught yourself everything. Yes, sir. Why? His voice was quieter now. Why sacrifice everything? You could have let the state take her. Gone to college. Built your own life. Ruth's eyes flashed. Because she's my sister. Because someone had to see her. To believe in her. And that's why you're so good at this? Isaac gestured vaguely toward the nursery. With my sons? I'm good at this because I never saw Hannah as broken, sir. Ruth's voice carried a weight that filled the room. Just different. Just needing someone to believe in her. To treat her like she mattered, like she was here, like she had something to say even if the words wouldn't come. She paused. Your sons aren't broken either, Mr. Brennan. They're just waiting for someone to really see them. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken understanding. Isaac closed the folder and set it aside. You're dismissed. Ruth nodded, turning toward the door, her heart sinking. Ruth. She stopped. Don't change anything you're doing with them. And. He hesitated, something almost vulnerable crossing his face. Hannah's care is covered. Starting today. Send me the facility information. Ruth's breath caught, tears stinging her eyes. Sir, I can't. You can. You will. Isaac's voice was firm but not unkind. Consider it part of your compensation package. What would you have done in Ruth's position? Share your thoughts below, and if this story is moving you, hit subscribe. The next chapter will break your heart. Dr. Sarah Chin had been the twins' physical therapist for 2 years, and she'd learned to temper her reports with carefully managed expectations. So when she arrived at Isaac's office 6 weeks after Ruth started, the tablet in her hands felt heavier than usual. Mr. Brennan, I need to show you something. Isaac looked up from his computer, immediately alert. Medical updates were never casual. Sarah placed the tablet on his desk, pulling up side-by-side videos. This is Asher from 8 weeks ago. On the left screen, Asher sat in his adaptive chair, his eyes unfocused, staring past the colorful balls Sarah moved in front of him. And this is Asher yesterday. The right screen showed Asher tracking a red balloon as Ruth moved it in slow arcs. His eyes followed deliberately, purposefully. When the balloon disappeared behind Ruth's back, Asher's gaze shifted, searching for where it would reappear. Isaac's throat constricted. That's deliberate visual tracking with predictive eye movement, Sarah finished. Something we've been trying to achieve for 2 years. She swiped to another video. And Levi. The new footage showed Levi in Ruth's arms, his face turned toward her voice. As she sang, his mouth opened, and a sound emerged, not a cry, not a reflex. A vocalization that seemed to respond to her melody. He's done this 17 times in the past 3 weeks, Sarah said quietly. Consistent vocalizations in response to musical stimuli. Both boys are showing clear joy responses, smiling, reaching. Even Asher attempted to turn his head yesterday when Ruth entered the room. Isaac stared at the screen, his hands gripping the desk's edge. What changed? Sarah hesitated, then met his eyes. Ruth changed. Mr. Brennan, I've been following the protocols we established, the approved therapeutic techniques, the structured interventions. They weren't working. She paused. So I started watching Ruth. Really watching what she does. And? She doesn't treat therapy like a checklist. She sits at their level. Makes everything playful. Uses exaggerated facial expressions and her voice like an instrument. She celebrates every tiny response like it's a miracle. Sarah pulled up her notes. Last week, I tried incorporating some of her techniques into my sessions. Asher tracked an object for 12 consecutive seconds. His previous record was 3. Isaac leaned back, processing. 5 years of elite medical care, millions of dollars, the best specialists in the world, and a maid with no formal training was rewriting everything they knew. The medical community would say this is impossible, Sarah added. But I'm seeing it happen. Whatever Ruth's doing, Mr. Brennan, it's working. The boys aren't just responding. They're. She searched for the right word. They're present. Maybe for the first time. Isaac nodded slowly, unable to speak past the emotion lodged in his chest. Have you ever witnessed someone defy medical expectations? Tell us your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The next chapter will show you why presence matters more than protocols. The conference call went silent. On Isaac's laptop screen, 6 executives stared at him with expressions ranging from shock to disbelief. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? David Park, his CFO, finally managed. "I'm canceling the Singapore trip," Isaac said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. "You'll represent Brennan Technologies at the merger negotiations. Isaac, this is a $400 million deal. You've been planning this for 8 months." "I know." Isaac closed his laptop before anyone could argue further. In 15 years of running his company, Isaac Brennan had never missed a major negotiation. Never postponed a critical meeting. Never chosen home over the empire he'd built. Until today. The next morning, he stood outside the nursery at 7 a.m., his tailored suit feeling absurdly formal for what he was about to do. Inside, he could hear Ruth's voice singing something soft and playful. He pushed the door open. Ruth looked up from where she knelt beside Levi's chair, surprise flickering across her face. "Mr. Brennan. You're here. I want to help with their morning routine." The words felt foreign in his mouth. For the next 30 minutes, Isaac tried. He really did. He knelt beside Asher's chair, attempted to help with the gentle stretching exercises, spoke to his son in what he hoped was an encouraging tone. But Asher's eyes kept drifting past him, searching for Ruth. Levi seemed confused by this strange man in the expensive suit invading their space. Isaac's hands trembled as he fumbled with Asher's ankle brace. He'd negotiated with Fortune 500 CEOs, commanded boardrooms full of skeptics, built a tech empire from nothing. But he couldn't connect with his own sons. "Mr. Brennan," Ruth said gently, moving closer. "They don't know you yet. That's okay. They're afraid of me." His voice cracked. "Not afraid. Just unfamiliar." She guided his hand to Asher's shoulder. "Talk to them about your day. Tell them about the meeting you're missing, the deal in Singapore, why you're here instead. They might not answer, but they'll know your voice. That's how it starts." Isaac looked at Asher, really looked at him, and swallowed hard. "Hey, buddy. I had to go to Singapore today. Big meeting. Very important." He paused, feeling ridiculous, but Ruth nodded encouragingly. "But I realized something more important was here. You're here. And I've missed. God, I've missed so much." Asher didn't respond. Didn't smile or track Isaac's face. But for one brief moment, his eyes stopped searching, and he seemed to simply listen. Ruth touched Isaac's arm lightly. "That's it. That's how you start. What would you sacrifice to be truly present for the people you love?" Share below, and subscribe to find out if Isaac's efforts are enough, because what happens next will test everything he's learning. Isaac was mid-sentence during the quarterly earnings call when his assistant burst through the door, her face ashen. "Mr. Brennan, Asher, you need to come now." He didn't remember running. Didn't remember taking the stairs 2 at a time or dropping his phone in the hallway. One moment he was explaining profit margins to 12 board members, and the next he was frozen in the nursery doorway, watching his son convulse. Nurse Patricia and Dr. Chen worked with practiced efficiency, turning Asher on his side, checking his airway, administering emergency medication. The seizure seemed to last forever and no time at all. But it was Levi who broke Isaac's heart. His other son sat rigid in his adaptive chair, mouth open in a silent wail that suddenly found voice, a keening, terrified sound that tore through the room. The backup nurse tried to soothe him, but Levi thrashed his head away, eyes wild, searching, desperate. "Levi, hey, it's okay. I'm here." Isaac moved to his son, reaching for him with trembling hands. "Daddy's here, buddy. Asher's going to be okay." Levi's eyes found his face for one brief second, then turned away. Turned toward the door. Searching. Waiting. His cries intensified. "Mr. Brennan, you need to step back," Patricia said. "Let us." The door flew open. Ruth stood there in jeans and a sweater, her hair loose from its usual bun, chest heaving like she'd run the entire way. She must have been called from her day off. Her eyes swept the room, landing on Levi first. "Oh, sweetheart." She crossed to him in 3 strides. The moment Levi saw her, everything changed. His arms lifted, actually lifted, reaching toward Ruth with an urgency that made Isaac's breath catch. Ruth gathered him close, and Levi's screams dissolved into shuddering gasps against her shoulder. I'm here, I've got you," Ruth murmured, her hand cradling his head. "Your brother's okay. See? The doctors are helping him. You're safe." Levi's entire body relaxed into her embrace. Isaac stood 3 feet away, his arms hanging useless at his sides, watching his son find comfort in someone else. He'd called himself Daddy. Levi had turned away. "He's stabilizing," Dr. Chen announced. The seizure had passed. Asher lay still on the examination mat, breathing steadily, eyes beginning to flutter open. Isaac moved instinctively, kneeling beside his son. "Asher. Hey, it's okay now. You're okay." Asher's eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first. They landed on Isaac's face, his father's face, hovering inches away, filled with fear and love and desperate hope. And then Asher's gaze moved past him, searching, scanning the room, until he found Ruth. Only then did the tension leave Asher's small body. Only then did his breathing settle. His eyes locked on Ruth's face across the room, and he made a sound, soft, seeking. Isaac felt something inside him shatter. He was holding his son, speaking to his son. But Asher wasn't looking for him, wasn't soothed by him. Isaac was background noise, a stranger in an expensive suit who happened to be in the way. Ruth met Isaac's eyes over Levi's head, and in her expression, he saw pity, understanding, and a truth he could no longer deny. His sons didn't know him. After 5 years of living under the same roof, breathing the same air, existing in parallel universes, his children didn't recognize him as their father. He had money. He had power. He had everything. And he had absolutely nothing that mattered. Have you ever realized too late what you were missing? The next chapter will show whether Isaac can bridge the gap he's created. Subscribe now, you won't want to miss how this story ends. The house was finally quiet. The medical team had left hours ago, the nurses had finished their shift rotations, and the monitors beeped their steady rhythm in the darkness. Isaac found Ruth exactly where he knew she'd be, sitting on the floor between the boys' beds, one hand resting on each mattress, keeping vigil. She didn't look up when he entered, but she didn't seem surprised either. "You should go home," Isaac said, his voice hoarse. "Get some rest. So should you." He sank down against the wall, his expensive suit rumpled, tie loosened. They sat in silence for a long moment, the only sound the boy's gentle breathing. "She died because of them," Isaac said finally. The words came out broken, raw. "My wife. Complications during the delivery. The doctors said she was perfectly healthy, that twin births had risks but we'd be fine. And then she wasn't." He pressed his palms against his eyes. "I couldn't save her. All my money, all my connections, and I couldn't save her." Ruth remained quiet, listening. "And then they told me the boys would never be normal. Never walk, never talk, never even know I existed. And I thought..." His voice cracked. "I thought if I didn't get close, if I just provided everything they needed medically, it wouldn't hurt so much. That I wouldn't lose them too. But you did lose them," Ruth said softly. "Just in a different way." Isaac looked at her, tears streaming down his face. "I'm terrified of them. Of loving them. Because every time I look at Asher and Levi, I see her. And I see everything I couldn't protect." Ruth shifted, drawing her knees up. "Hannah asked me something once, about 2 years after our parents died. She was 13. She looked at me and said, 'Do you stay with me because you love me or because you have to?'" Ruth's voice thickened. "It broke my heart because I realized she couldn't tell the difference. I'd been so focused on caring for her, on doing my duty, that I'd forgotten to show her I chose her. What did you do? I proved it through presence. Through showing up not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Through sitting with her when I was exhausted. Through learning her favorite songs. Through being there even when it was hard." Ruth turned to face him. "Your sons are still here, Mr. Brennan. You haven't lost everything. But if you don't start now, really start, you will. Isaac wiped his face with shaking hands. I don't know how to be what they need. Then learn, Ruth said simply. I'll teach you. But you have to want it. You have to choose them every single day, not because you should, but because they deserve a father who's present. Who's all in. The words settled over him like a weight and a promise. I want to try, Isaac whispered. God help me, I want to try. Ruth nodded, her expression gentle. Then tomorrow, we start over. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit we've been absent. If this chapter moved you, share what it means to truly show up for someone. And subscribe, because the final chapter will show you what redemption looks like. Isaac found Ruth in the kitchen the next morning, making breakfast for the boys. She looked up as he entered, weariness flickering across her face. I want you to stay, he said without preamble. Not as an employee. As part of this family. Ruth set down the spoons slowly. Mr. Brennan. Isaac. Please. He moved closer, his hands shaking slightly. I'm restructuring everything. I'm reducing my hours, delegating more to my executives. I'm going to be here, really here, for morning routines, for therapy sessions, for bedtime. And I need you to teach me. To show me how to see them the way you do. Isaac, Ruth said carefully. What changed between last night and this morning? Everything. Nothing. He exhaled shakily. I realized I'd been building an empire while my sons grew up without knowing my voice. I can't get those 5 years back, but I can start now. I can be the father they deserve. He paused. But I need your help. Not as their caregiver. As family. Please. Ruth studied him for a long moment. I have one condition. Anything. You have to mean it. Not for a week, not for a month, but for keeps. Because Asher and Levi deserve someone who's all in, not someone who's going to disappear the moment business gets demanding again. Her voice was firm. They've had enough of people being half present. If you're going to do this, you commit. Completely. Isaac met her eyes. I'm in. I promise you I'm in. Ruth nodded slowly, and something like hope crossed her face. Then yes. I'll stay. We'll do this together. 6 months later. The Bellevue Hills estate looked different now. The sterile white hallways had colorful artwork taped to the walls, Asher's finger paintings, created with Ruth guiding his hand while Isaac held the paper steady. The formal living room had been transformed into a therapy space, foam mats covering the expensive hardwood, sensory toys scattered across surfaces that once held priceless sculptures. Isaac sat cross-legged on the playroom floor, his dress shirt replaced by a simple t-shirt, his platinum watch forgotten on his nightstand. Ruth knelt beside him, demonstrating a sensory exercise with a textured ball. Like this, she said, rolling it slowly up Asher's arm. You want him to track the sensation, anticipate where it's going. Isaac took the ball, his movements careful. Asher's eyes followed it, bright and alert, a small smile playing at his lips. When Isaac reached his shoulder, Asher made a sound, a vocalization that Ruth had taught Isaac meant pleasure, engagement. Good job, buddy, Isaac whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Across the room, Levi sat in his adaptive chair, watching them. Isaac caught his eye and grinned. You're next, Levi. I've been practicing. Levi's face broke into a wide smile, a real, genuine, responsive smile that Isaac had learned to recognize over the past 6 months. The kind of smile that said, I know you. I trust you. You're here. Ruth squeezed Isaac's shoulder. He's learning your voice now. Both of them are. Music played softly from a speaker, one of Ruth's folk songs that the boys loved. The house smelled like the cookies they'd baked earlier, a messy, chaotic activity that had left flour on every surface and joy in every heart. Isaac looked around at the beautiful disorder of his life, the toys scattered everywhere, the crayon marks on the furniture, the laughter and music that filled spaces where silence had reigned for too long. He'd spent 5 years believing wealth could solve everything. 5 years pouring millions into medical solutions while missing the simplest truth. His sons didn't need another specialist. They needed their father. The poorest man isn't the one without money, Isaac had learned. It's the one without presence. The one who's too busy building empires to notice the kingdom waiting in his own home.